Hi everyone. So as delivering CPD in person is not possible, or it's a bit more tricky at the moment, I thought I'd make this quick video just to talk through a sort of project Martine and I have been working on, which is the deep learning plan, and the latest phase of that and what we hope to achieve through that over the coming year once we get back to college in some format. So first of all, it all kind of comes from Jeremy's curriculum model, which he shared with us a little while ago. And obviously this key phrase within there, the deep learning, that at Tor Point Community College we're really committed to not just teaching children stuff, but make sure they remember it in the long term. So I know lots of work has gone on within curriculum areas to think about how we do that, how we revisit content systematically over the course of Key Stage 3 and 4, how we build in opportunities for retrieval and the like. So what Martine and I have been thinking about in addition to that is how do we move it beyond curriculum areas and have some consistent frameworks for the students which complement what they do in their curriculum areas and sort of give back curriculum time in a sense to subject areas by making sure that students know stuff. I'm sure we've all done the same thing where we've taught the same topic or the same content 2 or 3 times in a child's school career, because we teach them, for example, in English, the Jacobean social context in year 7, maybe 8, and then by the time we come to GCSE in year 10 and they need to know that, they don't remember it, so we teach it again. And actually that's not only slowing down the learning for the children, but it's taking up curriculum time. So it's all about what can we do beyond lesson time and time with teachers to make the students better learners that can make the most of what we're teaching them. So stage 1 of our action plan you're familiar with because Martine's already got that up and going, which is the tutor time revision programme. So a system for all tutor groups in which they have high quality knowledge organisers, that they have the content of the subjects mapped out on them, and then they are actively taught how to use those knowledge organisers to revise effectively by their tutor. And I know that heads of department have produced some awesome knowledge organisers. Martine's getting them all into packs, and we've made tutor time sessions so the tutors have got something to help them deliver the programme. But of course, 20 minutes once a week isn't going to have the desired impact. It's a good start to teach our students and train them, but it's not going to make a significant impact. To have a significant impact over time, it needs to become a natural part of how our students study and learn and revise and revisit the content for themselves. So that brings us on to stage 2, which is about a home learning programme that employs cognitive science to support all students to learn and revise and increase memorisation of content. So again, that sense that we've taught them it, they've understood it, but we want them to still know it in a year's time. We don't want them to understand it in the short term and then forget it in the long term. So if we can use home learning and homework and get students into really good habits, now it's going to have long-term benefits for them and for us. So Martine and I have spent quite a lot of time discussing this, reading up on this, looking at different ways. And then Daisy Christodoulou did a most wonderful Research Ed Home presentation, which actually was a video that we all watched as part of the CPD group that we've got set up. And the title of her session is Teaching So Students Will Never Forget. I've put the link here so you can watch it if you want to. It's really worthwhile, and it's also worth watching right to the end of the questions because there's lots of really good points. But what she talked about answered so many of the questions that Martine and I had been talking about and trying to research during this lockdown period. So in short, I've just bullet pointed some headlines here. Spaced repetition is key to long-term retention. We know that, but actually making students do it or showing them the value of doing it is really hard. She also said the key to success is high quality flashcards, and that often when students make flashcards, they're not very good. Therefore, the benefits of using them are low. And it is better for the teacher, the expert, to make the flashcards and the novices to use them. And then over time, children can become more active in making their own. Because if children make their own flashcards, they're not going to be able to target the knowledge they need to know as well as we are. She also talks about overlapping as being really important to ensure students build flexible knowledge. In short, this means that you word the questions 2 ways round. So for example, for English, question 1 of a deck of flashcards could be, how many plays did Shakespeare write? And then the answer on the back of the flashcard would be 39. And then the next flashcard would say, which playwright wrote 39 plays? And the answer on the back would be William Shakespeare. So they're revising the question 2 ways round. And she said that really helps to contribute to the creation of knowledge schema. Another point that we already know, but she kind of reminded us of, students can't remember everything. We have to accept that. It would be great if they could remember everything we teach them, but actually we need to make judicious choices about what we want them most to remember for long-term gains. So for us, for example, in English, we teach the students Romeo and Juliet, the play, but actually for them to be able to remember the names of all the characters or memorise them isn't that valuable to their long-term learning. For them to remember certain contextual factors about Shakespeare's world and some generic features of tragedy are going to have far more gains for them in the future. So we can make, from a vast topic, we can just select those few things that we think will most benefit them moving forward. And then this last point is absolutely key and is why I've put this together today. Apps are far more effective way to manage flashcards than a shoebox full of cards, which I think is a no-brainer. If you've got 4,000 flashcards and you're trying to sort through them all, it becomes onerous and it's not very portable. One app on your phone where you've got all of your flashcard decks and can easily access them over time with really powerful and effective algorithms that create spaced repetition for students, that's clearly going to give them a better platform for learning to use flashcards. So we then, Martin and I spent a little time looking at different flashcard apps. We looked at one called Anki, which I believe a lot of medical students use because memorisation is so important for medical students, but it wasn't particularly user-friendly. And then we looked at a couple others, but we came back to Quizlet, which I think is a really good platform because a lot of subjects have already got Quizlet accounts and it's so user-friendly for the students and for the teachers. So in short, with Quizlet, all you have to do is to set up flashcard decks for students and save them. You then, as a teacher, can assign a deck for students to work through, and there's all these wonderful activities for them to do. They can work through the flashcards. The learn bit is brilliant. That's where they use the algorithms to ensure students revisit questions that they get wrong more frequently than questions that they don't. And it's all quite clever. There's also a function that gets them to write, to spell, and then finally to test themselves. So it's a brilliant way that we can create flashcards incredibly simply. I can create a deck of 20 in about 20 minutes because it's really easy technology to use. And then we can assign over the year, assign students weekly a flashcard deck that we want them to do the tasks on. And as a teacher, it's really easy for us to monitor how students are doing and to make sure that they are doing the tasks, because this is the sort of teacher dashboard. So all of the students are listed, we set them a flashcard deck that we want them to work on for that week, and then these are darker if they've done them. So we can easily, at a glance, every teacher can just look at the dashboard and to see which students have done the flashcard practice that we've set them and which haven't, and obviously we can kind of sanction students if they haven't. So it's a really easy system to kind of play around with and work out and use, and there's lots of tutorial videos online about how to use it. So it's just a really great way that we can set up flashcards, assign them to students, and then ask them to do the activities. Now, because we think this has got the potential to be really powerful for our students, a really powerful tool in our desire to facilitate that deep learning, for subject areas that don't currently have an account, we've set one up. We're in the process of setting one up, which isn't coming out of departmental budgets, has been funded through our sort of deep learning budget to try and make sure that we can have a really consistent approach to doing this. So you will receive information about your department account. It will look like this: English_TCC, yours will be whatever subject you teach _TCC. And you'll have a password. And once you get logged into the system, then it's the case of getting some flashcards set up on the system. So you can see here on this sidebar, you can create classes. Now, all I've done to make it nice and simple is I've created a class called Key Stage 3 English, because there's no need for us to get in all of our classes for next year yet. It's not even possible really, is it? But just simply setting up a class called Key Stage 3 English. And then once you've got a class like that, you just click on this little plus sign, which then really easily allows you to create a set of cards, create new set. You can create cards with a diagram on the front or the back as the answer or what have you. You can type in questions, you can type in terms. It's incredibly easy to use and easy to set up. Once you've then got a set of cards, you can just save them and then they're there for next year, for teachers can just find that set and assign them to their actual class and set them as homework. So then what I've done then for the English specific cards is I have set out some clear parameters. So there's some guidelines here that I've shared with the whole team about how we're going to create our decks of cards, using Daisy Christodoulou's training to ensure we optimise the flexible knowledge that they build. And I've just listed all of the different decks that we need to be made. And what I hope you can see here is that actually we don't need 39 decks. It's not a case of creating a deck for every week of the year. For year 7, there's only half a dozen decks of flashcards we're going to create, and plus some of these sort of more general punctuation, grammar and spelling ones, because they'll constantly be revisiting a deck. So we might start them off on week 1 of September, assuming they're back, with a what is a sentence deck to work on. And then the next week we might do Introduction to Greek Mythology, and then the next week a spelling deck. And then the next week go back to Introduction to Greek Mythology, or however. So it's not a case that you need a separate deck for every week. You actually don't need many decks at all, maybe a dozen decks. Or, I mean, I've got even less than that, half a dozen decks for a year group. And then it's just a case of alternating through the decks, so students are constantly revisiting and practicing, engaging with them. So the things that they're learning, they are constantly revisiting and practicing in a way which is really user-friendly. The app is free for students to download. There is a function to print off flashcards, so if we do have students who can't access it electronically at all, there is a function to print that off. So hopefully Martine and I, when we've talked about it, we feel like it could be really a powerful tool to achieve this desire we have of supporting curriculum areas to ensure that through the tutor programme and the home learning programme, students are not only memorising content, but they're also learning how to revise effectively. So our younger students, by the time they get to Key Stage 4 and 5, will already have embedded ways of working which are effective to help them succeed and do the very best they can. Any questions, obviously ask. I'm more than happy to help with anything. This was just meant to be a sort of introduction to why we've set up these Quizlet accounts, what we're hoping to achieve, and then we can discuss how it's going to work overall moving forwards. Thanks, guys.